In 2015, the comic book artist Karoliina Korhonen started the webcomic Finnish Nightmares. With the help of stick characters, she depicts with humor the struggles of Finns in their everyday life. This includes sharing an elevator with a stranger, being called out in the street, or waiting for your neighbors to leave before entering the staircase. These popular drawings reveal how important private space and calm are for Finns, but also how hard it is for them to fight their shyness. As international, we can sometimes have the impression that talking to Finns is a challenge and that building a friendship with them is almost impossible. Winters can feel long and lonely when social codes differ so much from our native countries. Ever struggled to have conversations with a Finn that lasted more than 3 words? This podcast is made for you. Welcome to What's Next Finland, a podcast series of 6 episodes that will tell you all about living, studying and working in Finland as an international. My name is Noémie. I have been living in Finland for 4 years myself. And in this podcast series, you will learn things about how to make friends, learn Finnish language, find an internship, find a job, or even create your own company. In this episode, we will gather a few tips about how to make friends with Finns. Did you know that in Finland, Valentine's Day celebrates friendship and not lovers? This reveals how friendship is important to Finns, even if it might take way longer than in other countries to build it. Before welcoming today's guest, I would like to talk about one of my own friends, Rami. I've met Rami during a theater project where I was the only foreigner among a Finnish team. He was one of the persons that made me feel comfortable and helped me to practice my Finnish. Then we also did a project together of theater in Finnish so I could practice my skills. So it was really demanding, but Rami knew that I was motivated to learn the language, and so he did a lot of effort to include me in the group. At some point after one of our projects, he introduced me to a person as one of his international friends, and I felt really glad because I didn't feel that we were so close. The way he had introduced me to that person surprised me because I was not expecting it. Finns tend to not show their feelings and not show that they care about you until maybe at some point they introduce you as their friends. Moral of the story, you might not even know that you have a Finnish friend already. But now let's welcome our guest of the day, David, who will tell you a bit more about his own way of making Finnish friends.
My full name is David Vuodo, and I pretty much just go by David most of the time because growing up, even in Zimbabwe, trying to pronounce Vuelua to everybody else, they're kind of just like Vuehu, so we kind of like have this whole thing of, I'm like Vu, yeah, Lua, so I kind of got a bit tired of that and I just started telling everybody to call me David. But it's pretty cool that both of my names pretty much mean royalty, so that's kind of like a little tad bit that I found out quite later on in my life, and yeah, it's kind of shaped a lot of my personality so far. And I'm from Zimbabwe. I've been in Finland for about 2 years now, and I'm having a pretty good time so far, I think. I'm a software developer, and I'm also studying at the University of Turku, specifically doing software development.
So David, you arrived in Finland 2 years ago, coming from a pretty warm country to a very cold country, and I guess that was not easy concerning your adaptation to Finnish weather. And I had a few questions about cultural differences, because as a French person, when I arrived to Finland, I realized I was a bit traumatizing Finnish people because I was asking too many questions, I was very loud compared to them, and I was chatting with a bit everybody. I'm used to be at the bakery chatting with the person selling me bread or with people waiting for the bus. Here I saw I needed to take it chill, maybe take my time, not be too intrusive, etc. So do you have some culture shock that really marked you when you arrived in Finland?
I know exactly what you're talking about. When I did first arrive, it it was at the airport, so I wasn't interacting too much with everybody else, and I was pretty tired. But I think my first reception in Finland was really good, because when I first got off the bus into Turku, I was picked up by my roommates, who I now pretty much consider as my brothers. Their mom picked me up and she took me to Hesburger, so this was my first experience, and we ate there, and then she took me all the way to the house, and she was very accommodating, a lot more accommodating than I was expecting. She really went above and beyond to really introduce me to a lot of, like, hey, the ins and outs of Turku. You can find this Facebook group that has this and that information and all of that. So she really, really took me through quite everything, and she didn't really need to do that. So that was, I think, my first real introduction to the Finnish hospitality. So I didn't really think that Finland was going to be that hospitable, especially with the differences being a foreigner and all of that. But yeah, I think that first experience really marked exactly how the Finnish tonality is. So once a Finn actually does decide to help you out, they really go above and beyond to make sure that you receive all the help that you need. And that's translated even into my work culture. So at work, you ask someone something and you're expecting a really short answer for like 1 second or 2 seconds, but no, they spend an entire hour really taking you through everything. But in terms of the social aspect, though, that's, I think, where a lot of the cultural shock came. So yeah, I think from where you and I come from, it's pretty much the same culture. So everyone's kind of like in your face, and you're smiling to everybody who's passing by you. You greet your elders. That's something that's almost ingrained in us when we're pretty young. When you walk past an elder, you tip your hat, you say hi to them. But here in Finland, you don't really do that. You kind of just like walk straight and try not to look at anybody too much. So, when I first came here, I'd like look people in the eye and kind of be expecting someone to smile back at me, but no, they'd kind of just like look straight and just walk right past me, and I was like, what's going on? Is this because I'm international? Is it because I'm foreign? But then I just found out that no, this is pretty much just the Finnish culture. So it's very, I guess, individualistic or so. So if you don't know someone, then you really don't know them. And it's almost like they don't really exist. You're just in your own little bubble, and then someone else is in their own little bubble, and it's just existing. And I mean, there's pros and cons to that. Definitely have your space. So if you're someone who truly enjoys your space and you're an introvert, then you will thrive here. But if you're a bit of an extrovert, then you're really going to have to make an effort to just be in everybody's face and just not care and be unapologetically yourself. And I think that was, those are two huge cultural shocks that I had coming to Finland.
Super good answer. It's cool also that you had someone like a native to introduce you to Finnish culture.
Yeah.
Like at least on my side, I didn't have this proper introduction, and I really had to dig to find the traditions or what is impolite or not. And I think I have a good anecdote about.
Yeah.
I joined this sport club, and one time I was like, okay, now it's been 6 months, I will start to make friends with people, and I will invite them to go to the sauna with me. It's sauna, so every Finns like it, they must go with me. And when I joined the WhatsApp conversation with 70 people on it, I just said, hey, Saturday, I'm going to the sauna, who wants to join? No one answered. And I felt so lonely. Yeah. And after, some people sent me private messages, and they were asking like, okay, I cannot, or maybe another time, etc. But they didn't answer on the conversation. And so it really looked so humiliating from my perspective. Later I understood that maybe it was too much to ask to a group of 70 people, because they have the pressure of, if I answer, people are going to judge me, etc. So it's better to send private messages to people. This is my tip. Call people one by one. Don't send on a common conversation.
I think I can definitely agree with that, because anytime you send something in a group, best believe that if it's not a group of international people, it's most probably going to be silent. So even though I had a really warm and welcome reception to Finland, initially I did somewhat get a little bit lonely, especially in the beginning, because I did, like Noémie, try and post in groups, hey guys, let's do this, let's do that. And when no one answers, you feel a bit rejected by everybody else. And you're like, hey, what's going on? Is it me? Is there something wrong? But then you just realize, no, this isn't the way to actually engage people. Just call them one by one, and the people will answer when you do that.
Despite coming from the opposite side of the world geographically, and also coming from such a different culture, you still managed to make really good Finnish friends. So I asked you today to prepare maybe like a presentation of one of your Finnish friend specifically, and to explain how it went from just an encounter to a real friendship. Can you tell us a bit more about this?
Oh yeah, so I would say that I'm probably not I'm not the biggest social butterfly, so I need my core group, and I got my core group initially during orientation. So after I had that, then I was like, okay, I'm pretty set in terms of friends and all of that. But of course, you still maybe want to make two new friends. So I go to the gym pretty much every single day. So I'm kind of like, okay, well, I'm here already. And at some point, you kind of start to see the same faces over and over again. But again, Finnish gyms are a bit different from African gyms and all that. Like when I walk into most African gyms, people kind of look at you and you give each other little head nods, or even when when you see other international people in the gyms, there's a sort of acknowledgement there. So walking in and then seeing a whole bunch of Finns, especially a campus sport, you kind of feel like, oh, okay, like everyone's just in their own little zone. And sometimes when you do go and talk to someone, it's a bit shocking for them because they're not used to people talking in the gym, especially with people they don't know. But I think for myself, I am a very friendly person in general. So most of the time I have a huge smile on my face and I'm just walking around. So that somewhat, I think, makes me a bit more approachable than, I guess, the usual person who's kind of just walking around straight-faced. So I use that to my advantage. So there was one time I saw some guy, and all he did was he would come to the gym and then he'd hang for like 5 minutes or so. I would just watch him sometimes, and I just wondered to myself, wow, because I can only hang for like maybe 10 seconds or so, and I just watch him, and he is just effortlessly doing it, and then after 5 minutes he just drops and then goes through his workout. So I watched him do this maybe 2, 3, 4 times. He didn't really talk to anybody else, just had his headphones inside there. So I decided, okay, I'm just gonna go talk to him. So now, because we're doing a common activity now, you already have something to talk about, so there's no pressure about, hey, what am I gonna talk to you about, what am I gonna say next? So I just went up to him with a huge smile on my face, and I looked him in the eyes and I was like, hey, you hang for like 5 minutes. And I just said that, and I just like smiled, and then he looked at me and he was like, yeah. I was like, that's pretty impressive. And he was like, thanks, man. And then a huge smile broke out on his face. So usually when you do approach someone, especially with that energy, they kind of break the facade or kind of get out of their heads and then, be a bit more present with you. So once I had him there, then we pretty much just started a conversation. We started talking, and the whole gym shabam about, hey, how long have you been training? Oh, you look pretty good. And then you quickly...
Gym romance.
Yeah, the gym romance. We kind of have a little bromance there. Because we're at the gym, then you break the touch barrier pretty quickly. You kind of touch his biceps a little bit. You're like, wow, bro, I see the progress. So, that kind of makes everybody a bit more comfortable, because now we've broken the social barrier, we've broken the touch barrier, we've pretty much broken down all the barriers. And after having a conversation for about 10 or so minutes, then it's like, hey, what are some of your hobbies? And he told me that he goes rock climbing sometimes. Well, not really rock climbing, but wall climbing. And then I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I've never done that, but my company is actually pretty close by, so I know the place. And then he was like, oh, let me give you my number, and at some point we can actually go there. So it happened very organically, and that's just because we have common interests. So it felt very easy to someone just go into a conversation and just talk about our very common interests, and not be too shy about it, and also just watch everybody and watch his reaction. So the entire time I was watching him, and if he showed even just the slightest bit of maybe being uncomfortable or something off, then you back off a little bit. But if the person continues being receptive, then you just continue projecting yourself. Then eventually you kind of just meet up, and we went rock climbing, and yeah, that's the story of how I at least met my first gym friend.
That's such a cute story.
Yeah.
Man, you're hanging out so well. I love how you hang.
It's just anything random, to be honest.
Yeah, but it's super cool. I think it's a cool anecdote that you're the first time we talked, it's because you were on this, like, in this position.
Yeah.
I think it's cool.
Hey, just hanging around.
Yeah. Now that you have presented one of your Finnish friends, maybe you can give us maybe a couple of tips about how to make friends with locals and maybe break the ice a bit, as you were mentioning before?
Oh yeah, sure. So definitely in the beginning, you might feel a bit anxious or you might feel rejected quite a lot, because even though this was one really good encounter, I've had many bad encounters, well, you label them as bad, but where you go into someone's face and they're just not interested. They're not receptive. They don't give you that energy. So you just have to back off. So firstly, you just have to know that you can't be everybody's friend, and that's fine. Like, someone may not want to be your friend. Someone may just be in their own head that day. Whatever it is, just don't take it personally. Well, maybe sometimes you're coming on too strong and the person is just uncomfortable. But there's 1,000 reasons. So one, don't take it too personally. You will get rejected maybe 5 times out of 8 or whatever else it is. So that's the number one thing. Just get used to rejection. And I think once you're used to rejection, then you stop overthinking it so much, and then it becomes so much easier for your natural energy, your natural bubbly self to somewhat just come out. So I'm also very fortunate that I can have this goofy side, and I think I can project that quite well to everybody else. And when you're goofy or when you're just generally friendly, then that breaks down this person's little facade. So when most people are just walking around, you're in your head and you're thinking your own things, you have 1,000 things that you're thinking about, you're not even thinking about the next person. But when you project yourself right into someone's face and you have this energy, and this energy is like really bubbly and just almost magnetic, then the person is almost forced to come out of their world and interact with you a little bit. So I would definitely say, one, get used to rejection. You will get rejected more times than you actually get a new friend. And then after you get used to rejection, then just manage your energy. So what type of energy do you want to go and project into someone else? Sometimes you don't always have to be bubbly or anything. Maybe sometimes you can even just go in directly, depending on whatever mood you feel. But just manage your energies. You know, you probably, most of the time, let's say you go to someone and you're a bit angry, they're probably going to move away from you, because they're just like, no, I don't want that. Like, I already have whatever problem I'm thinking about. And then for you to just come in and I can feel your angry energy. Like, I don't want that in my life. So yeah, try and manage your energy. And then after that, just try and be as natural as you can. You know, maybe sometimes you might think, oh, maybe I'm not that interesting. Oh, maybe I don't know what to say and this and that. But if you just naturally try to be yourself, it flows a lot more smoothly, and the other person can feel that, and they can feel the genuineness, and then that also allows them to drop whatever act that they're portraying to everybody else, and then they give you the real you. Versus if you go in there and you're projecting some sort of image to them, then they'll just project an image to you, and then you're kind of just, you know, two faces talking to each other, but you're not really connecting with the other person. So be as genuine as possible. You know, you could literally just be walking down the river, or it's amazing right now during summer, and you just smile at some random person and you're like, wow, it's a beautiful day, and you just say it with a smile. And sometimes they might look at you and be like, yeah, it's definitely a really beautiful day, and then you just go into whatever conversation is. Oh, hey, I'm David, and then you just have a small little good interaction. Hey, thanks, nice meeting you, bye. And then sometimes even the other person might be like, oh, wait, can I have your number, or something like that. Like, it should just be as natural as possible. Don't try and force it too much and be like, oh, well, let's say I'm not having a good day, but all of a sudden I'm just going to go up to someone and be like, hey, it's a good day. Like, it won't come out, and it won't come out naturally, especially. And if you're doing something you actually care about, so let's say the gym, you know, I've been doing the gym for years, so this is an environment that you're comfortable with. You pretty much know the entire lingo there, so it's very easy to connect with other gym people because they're in the same world as you. So yeah, get used to rejection. It will happen a lot, especially in the beginning. Manage your energy, and then just try and project your most genuine self, because if you don't project your genuine self, then you will both just be fake, and the interaction won't flow well.
The fact to be genuine, sometimes just saying to people, oh, I'm lost, or I don't really understand how the university works, I feel that this is something where Finnish people tend to help you spontaneously and to say, oh, you're lost in the corridors, can I bring you to your room? And one time I broke my bike in the street and people stopped to help me repair my bike.
Wow,
this was beautiful. Really cool, and they didn't ask anything after they left. Yeah. But it gave me a good impression, like, okay, there are actually people who would help me if I have an issue or something.
Yeah.
So thank you for your really good tips. And to conclude this episode, I would like to ask you, maybe from the other point of view, what do you consider that you are bringing yourself to Finland? So what elements from your home culture are you bringing to Finnish society? I feel that in my case, as a French person, I can bring this kind of small talks that I'm used to. I will maybe push people to have chats more often or to open more often, but also I'm more used to diversity in society, and I think that it's something, since Finnish society is very uniform in a way. It's a small country. People, you know a bit everyone when you live in smaller cities, etc. And I feel that sometimes coming from a country that has we are 10 times bigger than Finland in France, so we are more used to have a lot of people coming from different backgrounds, which is not the case in Finland. And so maybe I can bring a different perspective on society in general, and maybe I can help Finnish people notice how good certain thing about their society is, because sometimes they don't realize how lucky they are to have such an equal system on many aspects, especially concerning women's rights or LGBTQ rights, etc. So that's the thing I would like to bring, maybe another perspective on their society and what is well functioning and what should stay well functioning, and and also bring this multiculturalism that is really French. So what do you consider you could bring from Zimbabwe or the other countries where you lived?
I feel like our answer is very similar in that case, where a lot of us will probably have the same answer, because coming from an international background, like you come from France, I come from Zimbabwe, or I wouldn't say Zimbabwe is quite an international place, but there's this sense of Ubuntu, call it Ubuntu, and Ubuntu is pretty much just togetherness, so it's community, and the community aspect is, I think, what my biggest bring from Africa into Finland is. So even just generally when I walk around, I try and most of the time just have a smile on my face and just smile at random strangers. You know, there's maybe the old lady who's just walking just randomly, and she's in her own world. She's lived her life, and she doesn't really expect anyone to greet her or say hi to her. But you just look her in the eye and you actually say, "Hey, I see you," and you smile at. And I feel like that's very wholesome. And some of the smiles that you see from these people are very, very genuine. Like they're not expecting it, and it's almost just made someone's day just to say, "Hey, like I see you, and you're not alone." You know. I don't need to know you in order to actually connect with you and to actually see you instead of just walking past you. So I think that's really what my biggest bring from Africa and Zimbabwe in general is. And my roommate's actually, he sometimes calls me like his own little ball of sunshine, because whenever we walk together, he notices the amount of people who just smile back at us. And he's like, well, why are all these people smiling at us right now? And I'm like, because we're smiling at them first. So we're breaking the barrier first and making it okay to interact with people you don't know, because you said it perfectly. I mean, especially in Turku, there's this Turkulainen and proper Finland. And it's not even just with international people, it's even with Finns themselves. A woman I consider as my Finnish mother, she told me that she's worked in the same system for years, probably over 10 years or so, and she's never been invited into any of her co-workers' houses. But she's invited them multiple times, and they've all come, they've all had a good time. So there's this distance. So even amongst Finns, it's like, if you're not Turkulainen, then you're not really one of us. You're not really a proper Finn per se. So we'll keep our distance from you. But I mean, you don't need to do that just because you didn't grow up with someone from kindergarten. You can still know them. Even if you have a 10-minute conversation with someone, you have a 30-minute conversation with someone, you can still connect deeply on a deeper level and include them in your circle. You don't need to know someone from the time that you were young to actually truly know them. So yeah, I think that's really what I think we bring as international people too. And when we come to Finland, you know, our eyes are like this the entire time, because we're like, wow, this is an amazing building. Wow, this is an amazing river. Wow, your system works well. The bus comes on time. What is this? So, I mean, these are just things that when you live in this society for such a long time, it's so standard to you that you don't even think twice about it, and you lose that gratitude for it because it's expected. So you only notice it once it's broken. Then you have something to complain about, and you realize, oh wait, actually maybe I shouldn't take this for granted. I think that's definitely the two biggest takeaways that international people bring to Finland. So as Noémie literally just pointed it out, it's a different perspective and the sense of community, or Ubuntu, however you want to call it, breaking down barriers.
I didn't know that word Ubuntu though. That's cool
Oh,
to learn it today. But then thank you, David, for coming today.
Thank you for having me, Noémie.
And maybe see you in the next episode of What's Next Finland. Bye bye.